right. We are live, baby. Let me make sure though. Let me double check that. Hold on. Oh, that's going to take forever. It seems to be the week of everything in my life going extremely slow. And for a very impatient person, slow does not work for me. And yeah, we're live. Sweet, let's go. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. One and all and one, to the second episode in the third series of this brand new project called Tootie's Toy Box. I am, of course, Miss Tootie Odin herself, here with you guys to enjoy an extensive discussion and live chat, hopefully. Oh, I got to bring up the chat. About some of the behaviors that Homer Simpson seems to portray. Um, a lot of it, because it's a cartoon, we deem as hilarious and maybe somewhat innocent in its own way. But truthfully speaking, if this was real life, he would absolutely be a monster. So those are the types of behaviors that we're actually going to go over. Last week, if you guys were here, and thank you for everybody who has tuned in. I have gotten a pretty sweet response in regards to it. So thank you guys so much. But last week we touched on Homer's homophobia. We did talk about the episode called Homer's Phobia, which guest starred John Waters, who is a prominent gay independent filmmaker. And he did a phenomenal job on The Simpsons. I was actually watching an interview that he did in regards to the making of that episode. And he simplified it so much. Like, he was like, oh yeah, no big deal. I was on The Simpsons and I recorded my thing and then I went home. It's like, oh my God, like, but you're a legend. Like, you can't just do that. You can't just be like, yeah, no big deal. Yeah. So yeah, apparently no big deal. Shout out to Mr. Ed. Oh my goodness. Guess what, you guys? Tootie's Toy Box is officially international. Thank you. Thank you. That was all me. I know. I know. I know. Oh, I should probably turn the sound off on my phone. Yeah, there we go. Shout outs to New Zealand. Shout outs also to England. I hear they have great food there. All right, that's enough. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. So yeah, thank you and welcome, welcome, one and all, everybody who's here. So on today's episode, we will be discussing another episode that involves Homer and his wonderful antics. Let's see if I can actually share the screen. Let's see. Let's do it this way. Hopefully it's not too slow. There we go. Cool. So yeah, the Cartridge Family. I think it's a season 9 episode. It's an episode in which Homer, obviously, there you see him with a gun there. He purchases a weapon with the idea and the hope that he will be protecting his family. There's a lot that actually goes involved with that. The episode starts off where something happens and then like something in the public happens. And then somehow, for some reason, Springfield starts rioting and protesting and whatnot. And they're right outside the Simpsons house and the Simpsons don't feel safe. So once all of that hubbub is done, Homer decides, well, my family isn't protected enough. So he ends up going off and purchasing a weapon. Before we actually go into the episode and what actually entails in the entire episode, it's pretty bad one, you guys. If this was a real life situation and not a cartoon, it'd be really bad. So before we go into, I want to discuss something called the weapons effect. As I said, we are going to kind of take this into a psychological point of view. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I've been in therapy many times. I'm pretty fucked up in the head. So I think I have a little bit of say-so on this. Again, I'm no doctor, so disclaimer. Also, who wants to hear the opinions of a doctor anyway? Right? Like, we all know you know what you're talking about. What about the public? What about the people who have their own opinions on this stuff, who have been through similar situations, who have been through family trauma and et cetera, and grief and whatnot? So I like the idea of taking this and tackling this head on with the hopes of having a discussion with anybody and everybody who's watching. So let's define the weapons effect. So the weapons effect is an increased aggressive thoughts or behaviors and they use a gun as a cue or a prime for aggression, making people react with hostility. So basically, when you have a gun in your presence, it gives you permission to be an asshole to anybody and anybody around, which pretty much describes Homer in this episode. Trigger happy behaviors. So there is no actual psychological diagnosis. There's no psychological word for trigger happy. There's nothing like that. But there are like a circular thing around that thing that brings people to give themselves permission to act this way. One being impulse control. As we know through many, many episodes of The Simpsons, Homer has absolutely no impulse control whatsoever. Trauma. We do know that he does have plenty of family trauma in his life. If you are a Simpsons watcher, oh, good. People are texting me while I'm doing this. Oh, hold on. Have you watched any of the Wednesday show on Netflix? No, I have not. So I'm literally reading a text message. That's not in the chat. Let me turn this off. If you're watching, no, I have not yet, but maybe I will. I hear good things. So yeah, we do know that his mom left him at a very early age. He must have been 3 or 4 years old when he lost his mother. And he was raised by his father, who was kind of a hard ass. He always said Homer was never good enough. He considered Homer a failure half of his life, most of his life, really. So yeah, there's definitely trauma there. Hypervigilance, which is a state of being extremely alert to potential threats. I don't necessarily consider Homer to be hypervigilant. I actually consider him to be kind of the opposite. Very dense and very slow to react when it comes to actual logical danger, but quick to react at very irrational situations. And emotional reactivity. Yes, he's definitely reactive and very emotional. And that frontal cortex, that frontal lobe there, for some reason, just stopped. It just stunted in this character. So I think that kind of sums up a little bit of what we're gonna try to talk about. And you're gonna see a lot of it. You're gonna see a lot of a lack of an impulse control. You're gonna see a lot of trauma, because this episode isn't necessarily traumatizing for Homer. It's traumatizing for the rest of his family. Hypervigilance, you'll probably expect that more from Marge than you will from Homer. And emotional reactivity, everybody in this episode actually has a lot of that. So yes, so back to the episode. Homer does actually go out, buy himself a gun, wants to buy more than one. There's a scene actually in The Simpsons where he's going to buy the gun, and the gun shop guy is going down a list of things that's wrong with Homer. And one of them is, where is it at? He was in a mental institution. He has did I lose it? He's severely alcoholic, and he beat up former President Bush. And these are all the things on his record. And then Homer's like, oh, like kind of bummed out that he's not going to get his weapon. And then the gun shop guy's like, no, it just limits you to 3 weapons. And it's so funny because that is America. That's pretty much how this country is. And you know what? This is probably really bad timing to actually do this episode, or it's really good timing. If you guys are paying attention to the news, there are a lot of super major tragedies that are going on. And for some reason, school shootings tend to be a seasonal thing almost. And that's really not trying to be insensitive, but it always seems like at the beginning of every school year, we have this influx of school shootings. It's almost like these mentally ill people just don't wait for the school year to actually start. And we're involved with so many of these college campus shootings and lockdowns. And then, of course, what happened in Minnesota yesterday was absolutely tragic. So I plan to do this episode for a week. I've been building it up, obviously, before all of these incidents started happening. So again, it's either a good thing that we're doing this now, or it's going to blow up in my face. But that being said, this episode isn't meant to be insensitive towards what's going on here in this country now. It's actually kind of going to reflect as to how this country does work, and how people with these types of mental illnesses or traumas, or again, lack of impulse control, tend to make these decisions based on a lot of these things that they have going on inside of their head. So uh, my heart goes out to anybody who's been tragically affected by any of this. Even if you're not personally affected, it really does affect all of us. A lot of us have kids that go to school every single day with the fear that they have to experience something like that. And it shouldn't be that way. And it's like, but this is America and our First Amendment rights and this and that, which, yes, I agree. In fact, that is something that is pointed out in this episode. Uh, Lisa tells Homer the First Amendment is outdated, and it was only used, for, back in the Civil War days and blah, blah, blah. And Homer's like, say the King of England comes to America and he tries to take over. You want that, Lisa? Do you want that? Huh? And he's like, and again, it's supposed to be funny, but at the same time, it goes back to the ignorance of all of this. And absolutely goes back to the ignorance of how irresponsible Homer is with his gun in the first place. Let's see if I can actually go to the very first clip that I have for you. Where are you? Okay. There we go. Hopefully it plays. Oh, I got to the third one. Hold on. Is it going to play? Let's see. Did I press play? Did I press play on here? Oh, I do it. I assure you, I did practice this, but now I am not seeing the buttons that I need to see in order to play it, which sucks. Let me do it this way, even if I can't see me. Tried, didn't it? I'm trying, you guys. Hold on. I may have to close this whole thing out if it doesn't work. It's not going to play. That's a bummer. I worked so hard on this too, and it's probably not going to play. Yeah, it's not going to play. I'm just going to go ahead and exit out of it completely, which kind of sucks. Kind of sucks. I don't even know if you guys are there anymore, to be honest. Well, it kind of sucks that I wasn't able to play the clips. I'm gonna just leave that alone. Everything's going really slow. It's just this system is just cramming so much into it at one time right now. It just can't take it. So until I get a better system, I'm still gonna keep trying on making clips. I just probably won't do it that way. Canva sucks, by the way. Fuck you, Canva. So in that scene, Homer was actually introducing the idea of a gun being in the house. She is terrified. She's mortified at the idea of having a weapon like that in the house. She tries to immediately give Homer statistics on how you're 80% more susceptible to shooting an actual family member than you are an intruder. She's just trying to give him all these warning signs of reasons why not to have a weapon in the home. She considers it unnecessary. And this is after she was open to the idea of looking for a security system for the home. They looked into it. The security system was upwards of $500, and Homer was not interested in paying $500 to keep his family safe. But a gun, he would. Yeah, a gun, yes. Gun, yes. Security system, no, which kind of sucks. But that's Homer for you. So yeah, after that, he convinces her to go with him to an NRA meeting. And he's like, look, Marge, if you're still not convinced by the end of this NRA meeting that gun safety, that having a gun in the home is okay, he basically, and I actually had this clip for you guys, but he says, If you're still not convinced, we'll argue some more. So he already had his mind made up about the entire thing. Already had his mind made up about how he was going to use the gun to protect his family. But that's not what ended up happening. Homer didn't use the gun to protect his family at all. He ended up using his gun to show off to his friends, really. He in one scene, he's actually picked to host the next NRA meeting. He's picked to host the next NRA meeting, and with that, all of his friends who are there at the NRA meeting are watching Homer use his gun irresponsibly. In fact, he gives them a plate of hors d'oeuvres. He's like, here's this. Does anybody want a beer? Starts handing out beers, and then he picks up his gun, holds his beer, and he goes, "Pow," and he shoots open his beer and starts drinking it. And everybody that's at that meeting are horrified. They're looking at him like, Homer, did you really just use your gun to open your beer? He's like, yeah, I use my gun for everything. He then turns around, points his gun at his television, and starts shooting the TV to turn it on. And everybody's looking at him just like, this is ridiculous. And they're trying to tell him that he's irresponsible. I do believe that they kick him out of the NRA eventually. But before that happens, Marge Marge gives him an ultimatum. You get rid of the gun or your family leaves, because we're not staying in this house. We don't feel safe here with this gun. So he says, fine, I'll get rid of it. What he ends up doing, not getting rid of it, obviously, he ends up hiding the gun, to which Bart ends up finding it. Now, where he hides the gun is ridiculous. He hides the gun inside of the vegetable crisper. So one day, Bart and Milhouse get home from school, and Bart is interested in getting some fudgesicles from the freezer. So in order to reach the freezer, he has to climb. So what he ends up doing is opening the refrigerator door and opening the bottom drawer of the crisper, and so that he can climb up and get into the freezer to get his icicles or fudgesicles or whatever. As soon as he opens the drawer, his eyes light up. He's like, whoa, bingo. And the next thing you see is him and Milhouse playing William Tell. So Milhouse has an apple in his mouth. Bart is getting ready to aim and shoot at him. And just then Marge walks in, and she's obviously like just terrified, and she's screaming, and she says, Bart, no, what are you doing? And, she removes the gun from Bart right away. Homer nonchalantly walks into the kitchen. He says, oh, I see Bart gets the gun, but I don't. And Marge is absolutely furious with him. She's upset that he lied. She's like, Homer, you lied to me. I can't believe you. And that is when she decides, I'm out of here. And her and the family leave Homer to his gun, to his house, all to himself. So a little bit later in the scenes, Homer ends up just kind of hanging out in the house. The NRA's kicked him out. They don't want anything to do with him because of how he acts with his weapon. So you see Homer moping about, again, doing the same thing, opening his beer with his gun, and he's getting ready to go to bed, and you just see him shooting out all of the lights in his house, like boom, 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 just all of the lights. And then he's just in total darkness, because one, he's not going to be able to get those lights back on because he shot every single one of them out. And just dumb, ridiculous decisions that nobody in real life would make. But unfortunately, we're seeing now how many instances where people are accidentally doing certain things, or even just the evilest of evils doing the worst that you can think of with guns. Like I've said this before, The Simpsons honestly has and probably always will be ahead of its time. Everybody talks about Simpsons predictions. I'm not sure if this is necessarily a Simpsons prediction, but there is no argument that The Simpsons was not ahead of its time when it came to real sociological issues. And I commend them for it. I still honestly believe that Matt Groening is a time traveler. I really do think that. So there's Homer all by himself in his house. No family, no nothing. He ends up looking for Marge. He's so tired of being alone. He finds a matchbook that says Sleep Easy Motel, and he figures out that's where Marge and the kids are. So Marge is actually in a hotel room, a really shitty one. The kids are having fun playing with the mechanical beds and just enjoying themselves in a really dirty, dingy room, while Marge sits at the edge of a wooden chair with a bat, just protecting them with a bat, watching the front door that nobody comes in. Which is an interesting parallel to Homer and his gun, all alone by himself, and Marge with a bat in the dark with the kids, but both with weapons to protect themselves. Um, One using it to protect herself, the other using it to show off and kind of use it as a swinging dick, so to speak. Um, so Homer does. He ends up finding Marge at the motel. Um, he apologizes to her and he says, "Please take me back, blah, blah, blah. I got rid of the gun. It's gone. You don't have to worry about it anymore." So, as per Marge's MO, she does accept him back. They walk down to the lobby of the motel to return the motel key. And as they're turning around to leave, Snake, the local criminal, he comes up behind them, and he's basically, stick him up. And he doesn't really have a weapon with him. In fact, I'm not sure what weapon he has, if he has anything. Um, but he tries to rob them, and then here comes Homer with the gun, and he's like, stop right there, bad guy, or whatever. And Marge is furious again. He's like, Homer, what the hell, bro? You already said you got rid of it. So that's a situation that's like, oh my God, but he's using it to protect all, he's actually using it to protect. But Snake ends up stealing the gun because Homer says, what does Homer say? He says, joke's on you, that gun doesn't have any bullets. And so Snake has the gun pointed at him and give me those bullets. And Homer's like, okay, whatever you say. And he gives him the bullets to the gun. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. So he gives him the bullets to the gun, and then Marge is like, "Why would you do that?" He's like, Marge, he has a gun. And at the end of that scene, Snake does not get away because here come the NRA members. Mo, I think Skinner's mother is one of them. There's a handful of Simpsons characters that are all of a sudden right then and there and with their weapons, and they tell him, drop it. And Snake drops it, and he does eventually get away because everybody's paying attention to something else. But the bad guy did not get away harming somebody else because there were others there to protect. So it does. The episode is so like well-rounded and so like full circle, and that you get this aspect of this is what people who don't believe in guns and believe in using guns as protection think, that what people do with guns act like Homer. Most people that don't own a gun and aren't educated on guns think we all act like Homer Simpson. Those that are educated on guns and use them properly think the same thing, to be honest. And the truth is, there are people like that out there that think a gun is a toy a lot of times, or think that they have enough expertise to use it until it's too late, until something really, really bad and tragic happens. And then there's that other aspect, the aspect of protection, the aspect of what could have Snake done if the other five were not there with their weapons drawn to stop him from committing more crime or committing more harm. So it is definitely one of those catch-22 episodes, one of those catch-22 situations, which is again, I'm not really sure what the take would be if you watch this in another country that doesn't have the Second Amendment. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm correct, I think we're the only country that has it, and I think there are other countries that aren't. You're not even allowed to carry a knife. You're not even allowed to. You're not allowed to carry anything. So what do you do in a situation where bad guys are always going to bad guy? They're going to get a weapon on them no matter what. Whether gun laws exist or not, whether something's illegal or not, a criminal's going to criminal. You know what I mean? They're not going to be like, oh yeah, I'll do this. Oh, but I can't do that. That's illegal. No, man, criminals are going to criminal. So what does a citizen do to arm themselves, to protect themselves from a situation like that? This episode does not answer that question. In fact, at the end of this episode, Homer hands over the gun to Marge because Snake ends up dropping it, hands it over to Marge and says, Marge, I am not strong enough to get rid of this. You get rid of it for me, because if you don't, I'm just going to keep lying to you and I'm going to keep hiding it. He even says something. I really had this clip. I'm so pissed off that I can't show it to you guys. But he even says something to the effect of, holding that weapon made me feel like what God must feel like when he has a weapon. Like, that's such a freaky, like, really creepy thought. That is not a normal human thought. And I think, again, goes back to the impulse control and maybe the emotional reactivity. You know what I mean? Because that's not a normal thought to have. Wow, I feel like God with this. That's freaking weird. And anybody who knows how to handle any type of firearm knows that that's not a normal thought to have. Your initial thought should not be, I'm powerful and nothing can stop me with this weapon. That is an absolutely dangerous attitude and perspective to have when it comes to firearms. So yeah, he ended up handing it over to Marge. Marge is about to throw it in the trash can. And in the reflection of the trash can, she sees herself, and she sees herself holding it. And she's like, you know what? This is kind of sexy. I kind of like this. So instead of throwing the gun away, she ends up sticking it in her purse and hiding it. And she walks out like dainty, like this little like 1920s crime noir like dame, you know? So that's how the episode ends. It doesn't end with resolution. It doesn't end with Marge absolutely getting rid of the weapon. So it leaves you to question. The Simpsons The Simpsons was not a political show. It did bring sociological issues to the forefront, and then you have to decide what you want to take how you want to take it in. So this wasn't a guns are bad episode. This wasn't a guns are good episode. This was a consequence episode of what happens when you use it wrong, what happens when you use it right. And I think, like I said, it's so ahead of its time. I think it was such a really good episode. And again, really speaks to the primitive brain that Homer tends to have throughout the entire series. There's not much that changes about him, save for a few surface things, like we mentioned last week with the homophobia. You don't really see Homer being homophobic ever again after that one episode, because he hit it hard. Outside of saying the F word, he hit it hard. He basically was like, now he literally said, now we can't say only straight people have been in our house. Like, he was really pissed off at the idea that he allowed a gay man into his home. From there, there's episodes in the future where Homer actually considers being gay himself. Him and Marge are on a brief separation. He moves in with this fellow who is gay. Homer doesn't really care, but then his roommate ends up coming on to him, and Homer considers it. He's like, you know what? All right, let's try it. So he kisses him, and obviously he's heterosexual, so he doesn't really feel that way. But then he feels bad that he doesn't feel that way. So, and then, there are instances where Homer does make a complete 180 when it comes to his attitude towards things. Not necessarily his personality, not necessarily his psychology, but his attitude changes. Maybe, again, it may be surface level. I'm trying to think if there's other episodes where he has instances where guns are involved. He does a lot, actually, in the Treehouse of Horror episodes, a lot. But those, again, it is a cartoon, but I like to separate those episodes from anything else, because everybody dies in Treehouse of Horror episodes, and then they're obviously in the next episode they're back. Treehouse of Horror is kind of just the horror anthologies, the fantasy, the dream horror fantasy of the Simpsons side. And I can't wait for this year's Treehouse of Horror episode, to be honest. So yeah, I don't really consider those to be part of Homer's behavior, because he doesn't act like normal Homer. He's killing zombies, for crying out loud. He's there's episodes where he's had to like behead people, and he's shot Bart every in a few, or things like that, where it's like, oh my God. But at the same time, it's Treehouse of Horror, so it's kind of taken comically and obviously taken with a grain of salt. So yeah, I don't really count those. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, he does mention having a surge of power that made him feel like God, and that alone is creepy as heck. And what makes it, I think, even more so, oh, I thought I unplugged. What makes it, I think, even more so is that that tends to be real life now. People tend to use a gun as their answer to everything, as their answer to somebody cutting them off in traffic, as an answer to somebody honking their horn at them. I've heard people say, don't honk your horn in Texas because we have guns here. It's like, really? You're going to shoot me because I honked my horn at you to go? Emotional reactivity, right? Lack of impulse control, right? So, I mean, these episodes go deep, man. They go deep. Let me see if I can catch the chat. If anybody is in here and you have anything to add, anything to say, like I said, we do have international audience here, and I do understand that the rules are different. The laws are way different overseas. It's always interesting to look at comments or to watch other people's reactions when the United States does have gun tragedies happen that affect everybody. Again, specifically in Minnesota, we had a shooting where 17 children were injured and two had passed away. So condolences to their families. I doubt anybody in those circles are watching this podcast, but either way, my heart does go out. It's again, it seems to be a pattern every year where the school year starts and you start to see all these lockdowns. You start to see mass shooter on the loose. You just start to see it it's been every single day for the last 2 weeks, just about, if not longer. College campuses are getting hit for some reason. Now, granted, a lot of the news does exaggerate a lot of these things. Somebody sees a man brandishing a weapon, and an entire college has to get locked down, and no harm is done. But they call it a mass shooting or whatnot. So there is that. So you do have to pay attention to what is real and what is not, what is true and what is not, if in fact you are involving yourself and paying attention to those stories. Again, as a parent, as most people in the United States that are my age are parents, we do pay attention to those things because we really don't have a choice but to pay attention to those stories. Like I said, I hope this episode doesn't bite me in the ass. There was no ill intent on actually using or doing this episode before this tragedy. I mean, there's so many people that are affected by what happened yesterday at that Catholic church, in so many ways. And again, like there's so much that goes behind Homer's behavior that is so psychologically deep and so interesting to study, and so interesting to like pull out of the Simpsons episode and push into reality, because we have to face it that these things are actually happening in reality. There are people that are just as impulsive as Homer Simpson, that are just as traumatized by their past as Homer Simpson. So it was an interesting thing to study, an interesting thing to see. So with that, I'm probably going to end this episode. Again, I'm going to work on getting clips better. I probably won't use Canva as a presentation anymore because it's just too slow. It doesn't mesh well. I'm probably just going to go back to using my file folder, to be honest. That worked fine last week. It looked ghetto, but it worked, right? So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I had such a good time discussing this with you. I hope you guys had a wonderful time watching. If anybody was in a Twitch chat, I can't see it, so I apologize. YouTube, thank you guys so much for being there. If you like this episode, please plus like. Please do the thing, okay? Like the video, subscribe to my channel, please. It's young, it's new, the format's unique, in my opinion. It's something that some people are doing, but not a lot of people are doing. And I'm a giant Simpsons fan. I've been a Simpsons fan since it came out, since I was 5 or 6, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So again, you like this content, let me know. If you don't like this content, let me know. Let me know your thoughts on gun control. Let me know your thoughts on what's going on here right now, currently United States, that involve firearms. Is it getting out of hand? Should we change the laws again when it comes to the Second Amendment? And how do we change the laws enough to where criminals are just going to stop using firearms illegally? Not one criminal, I can guarantee you, not one criminal grabs a weapon legally. They're either using their parents' weapons if they're underage. They're, for the most part, these weapons have these scratched off serial numbers. But either way, legal or illegal, a criminal is always going to criminal. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you feel about what's happening here. Let me know how you feel about Homer's behavior. Also, let me know what episode I should do next. All right. Well, that was a good one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you guys next week on the next one. It'll be Tuesday or Thursday, but probably more than likely Thursday. So thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye.